Okay, welcome back for part two of our Ask the Rebbetzin panel. Once again, we're joined by Lori Palatnik, Ruchi Koval, and Shoshana Kay. Thank you, ladies, for joining us again. Here's your next question. You know, A of this is, I have heard that women are actually exalted in Judaism, thought to be closer to God and put on a pedestal by their husbands and children. Is this true, and why isn't this idea more widespread? I think we've covered that, but B of that is, it is said that women are more spiritual than men, and women are seeking spirituality in society at large more than men. How can women access this within Judaism? And you as a panelist, as a panel, are there mitzvot you would specifically suggest to a woman who wants to become more spiritual to connect with in their lives?
So I think it's a very good point. I do want to say, and this connects to things we said earlier, that you see that the desire for a woman to be counted in a minyan, I believe it is not a feminist, it's not a like, I want to be like a man desire. For a woman who wants to fill in the blank, okay? She wants spirituality. Yeah. She has a desire and a craving in her soul to be close to God, because that's who we are. That was placed within us. I grew up in Jewish in Toronto, and prayer was twice a year, unless there was a bar mitzvah. It was Simon Says. That means that your goal is not to be sitting when they're standing and not to be standing when they're sitting. The rabbi talked about bonds. The rabbi talked about Israel. The rabbi talked about politics. Nobody talked about God. Nobody. And I remember sitting there, and it was like a family outing, okay? You went and you sat as a family, and it's a family outing, okay? There was nothing about your individual craving and your soul desire to be close to your Creator. And I really, and that's why the rituals of whether to be the rabbi or to put on the tefillin or to put on the kippah or to put on the talis, those rituals seem like my avenue, because that's all I saw. Like there was like these physical things, and when you go down there, it is not satisfying. It's not completely satisfying, and that's why you want more. Just like you want more materialism. If I do more of these physical things or more of these, you really have to just rip it apart and pare it down and get to the core essence of what it's all about. This whole world is you and God. This whole world is you and God. That's what it is. And everybody who comes into your life, whether it's your professor or your spouse or your girlfriend or this kid or your employer or your next door neighbor or the president they're all there to bring you to God. That this is it. You know, like there used to be in the old movies, there's a cinematic technique where a guy walks into like a room where there's a party, and he sees a beautiful woman across the room, and their eyes lock. And it's a cinematic technique that everybody freezes.
Stupid.
Everybody is, and he walks in, and the music swells, okay? That's this world. Sometimes we have to freeze everything around us and realize they're all there to bring me to the ultimate. And what we do is we point and we complain, and if this was this, and then we grab onto any ism except for Judaism, because we grew up with not a spiritual feeling about Judaism. My husband always says, if a Jew goes into Barnes and Noble and is looking for a book on spirituality, are they more likely to pick up a book on Judaism or Buddhism? Buddhism, of course, because they're spiritual, okay? And if you pare down the essence of Buddhism, when it's talking about that everything happens for a reason, and that's and the concept of karma, it's Jewish. So what we do is, if the world starts repackaging it in this bestseller or this ism, and even that's why who are the leaders of feminism, as Ruchi said? It was Jewish women. Who are the leaders of communism? Jews. We're into every ism because what is it? We're seeking God, we're seeking meaning, we're seeking purpose. But if it's not going to go into Judaism because we're given a dreidel, give your money to Israel bonds kind of Judaism growing up, then it's going to go somewhere. It has to go somewhere.
Lori, what would you recommend women who are looking to be more spiritual, as women are? Are there any specific mitzvahs that you would recommend they connect to as a way of finding that spirituality?
So listen, you could talk generally, okay? Everybody should light Shabbat candles. It's beautiful. Or like the mitzvah of challah or the mitzvah of mikvah. They're all beautiful, and those are very essence. But you really have to look at the individual woman. Everybody's different. Everybody's just like you like Shoshana was saying, you raise a child according to their way. You also have to, like, your students are like your children, and you have to know who this person is and it may be more of an intellectual avenue and in terms of study that is going to bring her closer to God. For somebody else, it's going to be like some sort of positive action that she's going to do. You really have to know who she is. I think that if a person in general starts talking to God, if you have a relationship, you're in a relationship and you have a relationship with God, that I'm telling you, I really very, very strongly feel that prayer, and when I say prayer, I don't mean that you are necessarily in a synagogue, that you are saying words that maybe you don't even understand. I'm talking about connecting to the Almighty.
Intimate conversation.
Yes, if you have somebody and you say, oh, I'm very close with that person. We're like this, we're so close. Really? When's the last time you talked to them? You know, like, oh, like it's been 10 years and I don't even know what's going on in there. Like, if you have a relationship, and relationship means communication. So just in your own words, from your soul, from your heart and soul, just talk to God. Thank him, ask him for things. You're in a relationship, and God is not going to talk back to you in a cloud, and he's not going to talk back to you on a mountaintop. And if that happens, there are therapists in your community that we can recommend. But God is talking to you when people come into your life, when things happen. The Almighty's talking to you loud and clear.
Excellent. Okay, we have 2 minutes for a comment from either Ruchi Koval or Shanake on this, and specifically, if women are searching and they say, you know, sort of like, give it to me while I'm standing on one foot, if you will, like, what is something that I should be looking to, as a spiritual woman who's looking to connect to Judaism, what is something that I should maybe, you know, look into more or connect to? Lori spoke about talking to God, you know, not only necessarily prayer in the sense of synagogue prayer, but just talking to God himself. Is there anything that you would recommend to women, maybe Shanake with students? Do college students approach you about this?
So I happen to be giving a daily life class on Torah Anytime Now on prayer, and Ruchi wrote her book on prayer. I can't speak for Ruchi, but my college students, when they are really ready to grow and they want connection, prayer is what we do. It is never any student that says, you know, I'm going to start putting on skirts or I'm going to start keeping kosher. I'm like, wait! It has to be that there is a foundation. We cannot build a house when there's no foundational structure. And for me, I see that for Judaism, how can you have a relationship with your Creator if there's no intimacy? And we all know that one of the greatest conduits to intimacy is communication. So I agree with you, Lori. Like prayer, and if you really do want to continue on a growth-oriented trajectory, then there's this great book by this woman named Ruchi Koval.
I was going to say it would be weird if she had some other type of mitzvah that people could connect to other than this point.
But I really feel it's really important. And, you know, learning about formal prayer, even though Lori's 100% right, just talk, open the most intimate way. We learn about how to pray from Hannah when she begged God for her son Shmuel, for Samuel. It was as if she was drunk. She was whispering intimate whispers to Hashem, to God himself. We just have to open our mouth. But if we want even more, we can learn about formal prayer and the depth that's behind it. And Rocky.
Okay. Here's a question that's very contemporary, and people have emailed in a lot about this. I'm sure that you've gotten this as well. In general, people are looking to live their lives with vibrancy and joy, specifically women, amidst challenges, right? How do we handle the challenges of life, big and small, that inevitably come our way, specifically with Corona, kids, families, breakdowns? You know, how your advice to women on juggling all this. I'll go back to you, Lori, if you don't mind. Just, you know, balancing and juggling all this amidst the challenges, specifically with what the world is going through now.
So first of all, I would tell women, you're doing amazing, okay? Like, you go, girl. You're doing amazing. This is not normal. If I made a list of all the If I made a list, Shoshana, maybe mute. Is that okay? Yeah, just mute yourself. Atta girl. Okay, so if I made a list of all the things that could cause pressure in a marriage or in a family situation, okay? If one of them, if you came to me in counsel and you said one of these things on the list is in my life, now I understand why you're going through a hard time. So let's make the list, okay? Financial insecurity, job insecurity, illness, lack of death. If I'm telling you, I could go on. And when I'm talking to women now, they're like, check, 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 check. You got them all. So what does that mean? The fact that you're watching this and you're standing, okay, and you're alive, you're awesome. Having said that, everybody around you is also in a not normal situation, a high pressured situation, an insecure situation, a frightening situation. You may have a husband who is normally not around all the time, who's not in your zone usually, who is also wants to protect you, wants to save the family, wants to be there, but is going through his own fears and insecurities. What does that mean? Everybody gets a hall pass. I don't mean in abuse, God forbid, God forbid. If you're in an abusive situation, nobody gets a hall pass. You do not pass go directly to get help now. But the 99% of families, this is the reason why a lot of people are short-tempered and there's conflict going up and things are rising is because of our situation. So this is not a time to judge people because they're not at their best. But I do have to say that the Almighty God put the whole world in a timeout. Okay, so why do you put your kids in a timeout? You put your kids in a timeout because you want to stop the conflict. You want them to think about their actions. You want them to come out better people. But your kids come out and they go, sorry, okay, to the other kid. Well, that's not a real sorry. The whole world was put in a timeout because we have to think about our actions and we have to think about what we've been doing. If we don't come out different people, if we go back to the way it was, this was for nothing. It was for nothing. We must examine, and no rabbi can say, this is why God's doing this to the world. But you can ask yourself, why is God doing this to me? And people are saying, like, we're all in the same boat. We're not. We're all in the same storm, but your boat is different than my boat. Like, because your family situation is different than mine. And what did the Almighty do in this timeout? He turned on a spotlight. Some things we see in that spotlight in our homes. I always say this is a combination of Gilligan's Island and the Jetsons, okay? So Gilligan's Island, because we're shipwrecked with these people, and you never have to wonder, like, if I was shipwrecked on a desert island, who would I want to be with? God already decided. You don't have to wonder. But it's also the Jetsons, because we got all this technology, and we can see each other, and the Almighty made it easier for us in this situation. But this spotlight, again, I realized I don't just love my husband. I like him. Not all the time, okay? We have our moments, but I like him. Some people but sometimes the spotlight is showing us things that we weren't dealing with before, but the Almighty wants us to deal with it. And because we were running and doing, we never even saw it. One of the women said to me, my college-age son came home and he was shipwrecked with us. Okay, we're in quarantine together. I always thought we had a great relationship. I realize now he hates me. He hates me. And I didn't even know. And I said to her, thank God you know, because now you can do something about it. Because sometimes we put things on hold. And another woman said to me, I always thought my husband, he was like social drinker. My husband, I realized now that we're in quarantine, he's an alcoholic. Is my marriage over? No, your marriage is not over. But thank God you see it. We need to see the good and we need to see the challenging, and we need to embrace this opportunity to get back on course. That when we come out, we are different people. When we first were in quarantine, I remember coming down and my husband said, there's no water. Like, they cut off the water. Like, we live in Jerusalem. I'm like, they cut off the water? He goes, if you had a choice between no water or no Wi-Fi, what would you pick? I go, no water. He goes, we have Wi-Fi. Woo-hoo. Okay. So that became our theme, that we're always focusing on what we have and what we don't have, because there's so much to be grateful for, so much. But we have in the morning here, the birds are singing. And they wake you up at dawn, literally at dawn, okay? Like 5:45, the birds are singing. And a few days into quarantine, I said to my husband, they're singing all day long. Do you hear them? they're singing all day long. It's like we step back from the world and they're singing Shir to Hashem. They're singing a song to the Almighty. You see the world starts healing. The skies in LA are clean. Okay, the water is clean. The birds are singing. And then a few days more, I said, Yaakov, maybe they were singing all along. We just weren't listening. So this is a time to see and to listen.
Amazing. Any of the other Rebbetzins, a comment about being able to juggle it all during challenging times such as these, specifically for women who are juggling a lot during these times?
Yeah, I sort of have like a 4-part formula, and it's not specific to this pandemic at all. It's it's no secret that I've gone through some very difficult things with my kids, and other people go through very difficult things in their marriages or in their finances. So what I'm about to say is by no means specific to this pandemic. I think it's in general. Living life is not always an easy adventure. So I would say number 1 is feel your feelings. We were talking before about building an intimate relationship with God. God is big enough and loves you enough to handle your anger, your pain, your disbelief. Some people think, well, if I'm a good Jew, I'll just say, well, everything happens for a reason. God doesn't give you anything you can't handle, and all these other mantras. You have to feel your feelings first. I mean, this is true psychologically and this is true spiritually. If you have an emotion, like we were saying, you're in a relationship with God, you have an emotion, you can say, oh, I can't share that emotion with God. We're not that close. You have to be able to say, this hurts, this is painful, this is scary, I'm afraid, I'm terrified, I'm angry. That's number 1. Number 2, and this is such a buzzword, and this can also get radicalized, but self-care. Any woman who is juggling whatever, you have to take care of yourself. There are so many women who are in this martyred workaholic mode that they're going to take care of everyone, and they're going to homeschool their kids, and they're going to bake banana bread, and they're going to, write thank you notes to all the firefighters, and they're going to, and be super Jew at the same time. That is utterly ridiculous. You have to take care of yourself. You have to meet your needs. You have to, let yourself off the hook. And then there are some people who do too much of that because it's all about Netflix and wine. Okay, here comes number 3. Number 3 is other care. Of course you have to feed yourself. That's so that you can have a full tank to feed others. So sometimes you have to get out of your own head and get out of your own self-pity and figure out how to give to another human being. That human being might be your child, it might be your spouse, it might be your parent, it might be an elderly neighbor, it might be FaceTiming with someone who lives across the world. But so many times the way that we can manage our own pain is by becoming somebody who is relevant to other people. I have something to give. I have something to share, and it makes you feel amazing. It doesn't solve whatever else is going on in your life, but it adds such a strong dimension of meaningfulness. And finally, number 4 is faith. And this is not some linear path, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, or it's not okay, now I got to the finish line. It can be back and forth multiple times a day or several times a week or a couple times a year. But this is faith, and this is everything happens for a reason. God loves me. I'm here to live my best life. Only God knows what I need to live my best life. These challenges are going to grow me. These challenges are going to transform me. And this is what I need. Just to throw in quickly, we were talking before about equality. With all these conversations that have been happening nationally about equality, equality is not actually the goal. Equity is the goal. Equity is where, I saw this picture of these people of different heights and they're all trying to see over the fence. Equality is where you give everybody the same size stool. Equity is where everybody gets the stool that's the right height so that they can see over the fence. God did not create us all equal, contrary to whatever the United States of America has to say. As Lori said, just look around. Are we all the same? We are not all the same. People have higher IQ. Some people are super charismatic. Some people have a lot of money. Some people are super lonely. But God did give us equity. He gives us what we need to see over the fence.
I think I'll also just quickly put in there's such beautiful answers. So just to give some context to my situation, I'm raising special children and special children. And my special children are, sometimes I feel, one of my kids, we grew up with one of my kids saying, Ma, I wish this particular child had Down syndrome, because then the whole world would know. That's number 1. So raising children with challenges and then children with specific special needs is a whole world in itself. 4 years ago, after my 6th I had my sixth child, Sarala. I was paralyzed 3 months later from the waist down and told I may never walk again, and discovered that I have an autoimmune illness that is never going away, and I could wake up tomorrow again to not walk again. And then as you announced, Rev Freeman, I have 2 very large positions and a young family. My youngest is only 4, so ranging from 16 to 4, and it's hard. It's very hard. Our family was actually featured for a whole year in a magazine, and we have a book coming out in about 6 months, written about the challenges that our family has gone through over the last 15 years, specifically with one of my kids and my own illness and facing an illness. So for me, I feel that like sometimes, I love people who say, well, God doesn't give you anything that you can't handle. I'm like, well, he made a mistake with me. Like, I can't handle this, or it's too, or like God knows which address to send challenges to him. Sometimes I feel, well, it was the wrong address. Maybe it should have gone to a different address. So I really feel in my life, especially since I got sick, that was my tremendous gift from God for me. On the, because they didn't know what was wrong with me, I had every single test you could possibly imagine. And one of the tests found a precancerous cyst that would have metastasized within 4 years. And I would have had stage 4 active colon cancer. And that would have been now. So I was 37. I just turned 42. So 41, they said I would have, really been battling a cancer that probably I wouldn't have been able to fight. So people always say to me, wow, so you got sick so that your life could be saved. And I say, yeah, that's pretty cool. But no, that's yeah, I guess so. But that's not why I'm so grateful to Hashem that I got sick. I'm so grateful to Hashem that I got sick, because when the most basic things are taken away from you, you come to appreciate the most insignificant things. It took me 6 weeks to move my toes and move my ankles. 6 weeks of OT and PT that I thought I was going to die from. And, when was the last time, and whenever I give this talk, when was the last time anyone ever wiggled their toes and said, thank you, God, that I can wiggle my toes. So for me, overcoming difficult times and difficult challenges, I have 3 acronyms that I use. So first of all, it's ego. Whenever I'm living in ego, I know that I'm edging God out. And when I'm edging God out, I'm living in Shoshana's world. If I'm living in Shoshana's world, forget it. No ways. I have to live with a God-centered lens to understand that there's something much bigger and much greater, and I'm just part of this plan. The next thing is pause. I try and pause, pray, and use spiritual energy. I try and take a moment to just focus and figure out what is going on around me, that it's not just the here and now. There's something much bigger. And then I get into my favorite acronym, which is DRAG. DRAG is drama, radical acceptance, and gratitude. What is the drama piece? If I want to, the drama piece is that each and every one of us are given a script. And my job today, the last 4 years, how I've been living, is just to play the best part that I possibly can. I'm not the director. I'm just another actor in this show. And I want to win an Academy for today. I take it one day at a time. Radical acceptance is I feel my feet on the ground, and this is the situation. This is the situation with my children. This is the situation with my health. This is the situation with my own anxiety, fear, stress, whatever it is. And I live in that. And then the final thing, which is the overarching major thing, is gratitude. The more we look around us and we amass our wealth with the blessings, like Lori said, of that which is not that which isn't, the more we look at all the things that we have and start to focus on all the things that the gratitude, even within the things that we don't have, magnificent things start to happen. It's like a whole spiritual system where God ends up sending us more things to be grateful for. The more grateful we are, the more things that we come to have the ability to be grateful for. And I really think that in my situation, I do not have an easy life. And I am so grateful for the ability to one day at a time hone in on the spiritual connection that I have with my Creator and all the blessings that I have. And I think during Corona, we can all finally say, like Lori said, we're in this together, but in our own boats. We're all going through challenges, major, major challenges, and living life according to God's plan, acting the best way that I possibly can, radical acceptance and gratitude, and taking a moment to pause is the way that I get through difficult times.
Wow. Shoshana, that was so beautiful.
Wow. There's nothing left to say after this.
Wow. The sign over your shoulder, life is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Ruchi, you're amazing, and you're like a flower in that garden you're outside. And it was really a privilege and an honor to be part of this.
And I want to thank the Rebbetzins really for. I know it's not easy to give this amount of time in challenging times, but I believe that people that are watching this are getting a tremendous amount of encouragement, to both for them and their families to be able to get through these times and to recognize, like all of you mentioned, to connect to God and to appreciate what we have, the gratitude piece. And I really thank you on behalf of Project Inspire, all of us. Thank you for joining us and for really giving the insight and giving us the time.
Thank you, Project Inspire. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
A shout out, because Lori, I know that for so many of us, whether it's Rebbetzins or lay people, whether in the religious world or wherever people are on the spectrum, you have been such a guiding light for so many of us about so many of the topics that we've talked about. I know you're a personal mentor of mine, and I just want to say that you are doing an incredible, incredible thing for the Jewish people. I'm honored to know you.
Thank you, Ruchi.
And I'll say that many women who will be watching this feel the same.
And thank you, Project Inspire. You guys are also doing tremendous work. I know your Friday show is reaching thousands and thousands of people. I mean, just putting out quality content all the time. It's just really unbelievable. Thank you.
And this is at the top of the list, though.
Thank you so much, Project Inspire. And I want to tell you that it's the first time in 4 months that I've done anything live that my children have not video bombed the occasion, except for just now. So it must be a testimony to the amazing work and efforts you're doing. And Lori, it was so nice. I remember years and years back, you probably don't even remember, you were giving a class in East Village, Toronto. I think I was at the beginning of my journey, and it's great to be able to, very humbling to be able to sit on a panel. And Ruchi, I hear all about you from like all the amazing women that I get to work with. And here I am finally meeting you over Zoom. So nice. Thank you.
But the real reason your kids behave is because you got permission from Lori for them not to behave.
Yes. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Bye, Rabbi.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Yossi Friedman from Project Inspire, and I'm back for a little bit of a special edition here. I wanted to get a chance to catch up with Shoshana Kay, who has been on our panel, specifically because questions have come in with regard to Mikvah and marriage specifically. And Shoshana Kay is the National Program Director of My Gift of Mikvah, which is a program of Mikvah USA, something that you're very familiar with. I know that I'm disturbing you. You're got to be able to get away a little bit, but I appreciate your time as always to be able to continue our panel discussion. If you don't mind, I have 2 questions left to ask you.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me back. I took Ruchi Koval's self-care so seriously that I left the day we recorded.
Well, I didn't take her advice so seriously, so I guess it was really only for women. Anyway, okay. So, Shoshana, this is a question that's come in. There have been different variations of the question. Obviously, people hear, there's misconceptions, there's all types of, rumors, if you will. But specifically, these are the 2 questions regarding mikvah specifically that have come in. I wanted to, get your take on it. 1A of this question is, how do I infuse intimacy and connection in my marriage? It seems that whenever I try, my husband gets more distant. And B of that is, what role could mikvah play in upgrading our marriage and keeping it strong? You could please enlighten us.
These are great questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman, for having me back with Project Inspire. I'm really inspired by what you are all doing, and that's why I was willing to interrupt my vacation for you. So both are really amazing questions. The first question, how do I infuse my relationship with more intimacy, especially when my husband is potentially giving me pushback? I would say the most important thing, the first thing before we look at another person, is we have to look at ourselves. Especially within a marriage, we can so easily look at our husbands and say, if only he was giving me more attention, if only he was loving me more, if only we had more date nights, then I would love him more, then there would be more intimacy. And it's interesting, we learn so much about the wisdom of Judaism from the dikduk, from the grammar of it. The word ahava, which we all know, love, also shares the same root as the Aramaic word lahav, which means to give. We think oftentimes in our relationships that I will love you more, my spouse, my partner, if you give to me more. But Judaism says, no, I will love you more, my partner, if the more that I give to you. And the more that I give to you, the more there will be love and intimacy in the relationship. So how do we give when we feel like we're always giving? So it starts, first of all, the fact that you ladies are watching this and that you're interested in growing spiritually, it starts with working on yourself and recognizing what can you do to infuse yourself with more life? What can you do to infuse yourself with more energy? Are you the person that you were when you got married? Are you still have that same vitality and energy that you did? And oftentimes as marriages move on in the years, we don't. So the first thing I would say is that women need to do everything they can to fill their cup. And once their cup is filled, giving in our relationship, Rachel Goldbaum, my partner in Mikvah USA, always says that there's 3 A's that this type of advice doesn't apply for, which is adultery, addiction, and abuse. So as long as there's not those 3 things, marriage advice can really be given to any marriage where there's not that level of dysfunction. So the idea is that in giving, in spending time, in investing in the relationship, and invest in it not necessarily in the way that you want, invest in it in the way that your husband would want. A very funny story, several years ago, my husband decided to take us on a really romantic date. And I was like, wow, I'm so excited. This is so much fun. He planned a whole night. And all of a sudden we're driving in Philly, and I feel like we're not in Kansas anymore. Like, what is going on? We are not on the right side of the tracks. So my husband is smiling from ear to ear, and I'm thinking, like, this is his romantic date. He's taking me into the ghettos of Philadelphia. And he's like, okay, we're here. Come out. I'm like, I don't want to get out of this car. And at the time I was teaching marriage class and speaking about the importance of giving to your spouse the way they want to be given to. And there I am sitting in the car. I barely want to move. And he goes, come on, we're here. I'm like, where? I get out the car and I see Shalom gun range. I think it's myself. You're joking. You've taken me to a gun range for a romantic date. He's like, isn't it so much fun? And I realized in that moment, wow, I could have really sulked, is this what you call romantic? This seems like a nightmare. Or I could have said, this is my opportunity to give to my husband, to do what he wants to do, and really put myself in his shoes. We ended up having a great time. It's a big joke that I actually was a better shooter than him, but we try not to talk about that too publicly now that it's on Project Inspire. And but that's always resonated with me, this idea that in that moment I could have been so resentful. I could have felt like, what, are you kidding? But what came as a result of that, out of letting go of what my needs were in that moment, it was so much more beneficial to investing in the relationship. So let's just leave with 3 specific things based on your first answer, and then we'll get to mikvah. Number 1, if you want more intimacy, stop looking at what's lacking. Start looking at all that there is. Number 1, make a gratitude list of all the amazing things that your husband is. And don't even tell him. Read it every single day. All the character traits. What's so crazy is when couples start to do this, they come up with 3, 4, 5 things. And I say, you got married to your spouse for eternity for 5 things? There's no way. Go back to those days where there was butterflies and excitement. What is your husband really about? And when women really work on this project, all of a sudden it starts growing and growing. And they don't tell their husband about it. They read it every day and they write their gratitudes about their spouse, all the amazing things about him and all the things you can be grateful. And suddenly your husband's going to start to ask, is something going on? You're acting differently. What's really going on? So that's number 1. Focus on the gratitude and all the gifts that your husband possesses. And really work on it. 6 weeks, you're going to notice such a difference. Number 2, give to your husband in the way that he wants to be given to. And number 3, make sure that you're filling yourself up. Become the person that your husband would want to be intimate with. And it's not often based on our physical appearance. It's based on what we are emanating externally. Is that satisfactory to you, Rabbi Friedman?
It's more than satisfactory.
Okay.
B of that was specifically, where does mikvah play a role, and absolutely the misconceptions that people have about it.
So mikvah, working full time as regional director for Ma'or, when we launched My Gift of Mikvah 2 years ago, and everyone said, "You're going to be a national program director of a second organization? Are you out of your mind?" I said, "No, we must do this, because there are so many women. I've come across so many women, regardless of where they fall on the Jewish spectrum, who are denied the privilege and the gift of mikvah observance." And My Gift of Mikvah, everyone was making fun of the name when we started. I said, no, because Mikvah USA wants to give women access, regardless of where they fall on the Jewish spectrum, access to unwrapping the magnificent gift of mikvah. So what is this magnificent gift? So we all know that in our relationships at a certain time, like it's actually a study that's being done around the 7 to 10 year mark, called the 7 to 10 year itch, that relationships that are not engaged in mikvah observance, or the laws of family purity, as we call it, their intimate life becomes quite monotonous. And there's challenges around, a lot of times, challenges around that situation. And it comes out as a result in the dynamics of the relationship. The gift of mikvah for each and every woman, it's not only the gift for a lady's family, it's the gift of empowerment that we give ourselves. See, when we are immersing in a mikvah after our 7 day, after our menstrual cycle, the gift that we are giving ourselves is the gift of renewal, the gift of transition, the gift of transformation. And water, what is so magnificent about water? Water is the only entity that goes from solid to liquid to gas to solid to liquid. As women, we're changing all the time. My moods can go from happy to sad to positive to low energy. That's what we are as women. We enter the waters of the mikvah, the spiritual, magnificent waters of the mikvah, and we are entering with a sense of tikvah. Mikvah and tikvah. The word tikvah is hope. Mikvah and tikvah share the same root, that we enter these waters with a hope. What is the hope for? A hope that we too, through the process of these waters, through the process of immersing, have the ability to change ourselves, to infuse our families with spirituality, and infuse our relationships with greater intimacy and a greater connection. So mikvah isn't only about the marital relationship. It's about me and taking ownership of myself as a woman, my physical body, my spiritual body, and taking the time out to say, I have the potential to be recreated, and that I'm not a static being. I can change. And if I can change, my relationships can change. And what's so magnificent in the cessation of intimacy, because we do take a break when a woman is menstruating, and then there is a time period afterwards, in that cessation of intimacy, each time a woman and her husband are together again, they get to experience a newness, a freshness to their intimate life. And that's a gift that is a really, really amazing thing for the relationship. So oftentimes, when going back to your first question, we think that, how do I have more intimacy? I have to add more intimacy into my relationship. There has to be more sexuality and sensuality in my relationship. And the truth of the matter is that as a result of ceasing, for taking a break and focusing on ourselves and building the relationship, building the emotional communication, the emotional connection, not being able to touch once there's been a negativity or anger between you, and having to truly express your inner feelings, the relationship, a foundation is created in a magnificent way, and the couple is infused with a new start.
Amazing. We have 2 minutes before I let you go over here. Just to address one question. People are feeling, we touched on this a little bit during the panel, that people are feeling, in a challenging time. I'm trying so hard. I feel like I'm doing all I can to turn my situation around in my family, in my marriage, physically, spiritually. Why aren't things getting better? What does God want from me? Does he really care? How does that, fit into the faith that we're supposed to have in God, to give us the good life?
That's an amazing question, and thank you for asking it. For the, as I think I had mentioned, we have a book coming out about our family's life story, and it was featured in these magazines. And the last chapter that I happened to have written, I spoke about this exact concept, that there is a psalm that there is a psalm, Keli, Keli, lama azavtani, my God, why have you forsaken me? And for years, when I was raising my oldest son, I felt for 12 years, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. Hashem, where are you? And here I am, this religious woman. Why is it so hard? And it was when I got sick that all of a sudden my mind was opened up to the realization, it's not my God, why are you forsaking me? It's my God, in the process of feeling forsaken, you are merely forming me. We know that any parent that loves and cares for their children, that we are helping our children when our children are doing something that requires some structure or discipline. When we do it with love, there's nothing more magnificent. In these times, of course, we could feel like, where's God? But let me tell you, God is wherever, Hashem is wherever you let him in. He's watching you and he believes in you. I'm going to end off with this, but every morning people say, but how can I do it? It's so hard. I can't go on like this. Your job right now, each and every one of us, our job is to just do it for one day at a time. And Judaism gives us this magnificent war cry, Modeh-ani lefanecha. We wake up and the first thing we do in the morning is we say, Modeh-ani lefanecha. I'm grateful before you, Melech Chai v'Kayam, living eternal God, Shehechazarta b'nishmasi, that you replaced my soul in me, b'chemla, with compassion. And then we say the weirdest thing, Rabba emunasecha. We say, abundant is your faithfulness. Now, growing up, I used to watch Baptist priests, and if you're lucky enough, you sometimes get it. But I remember them, I never heard them say like, praise the Lord, I believe in you, God. Your faith is abundant. They didn't speak like that. They did not preach that way. They, Lord, I believe in you. I believe in you, God. So why in Judaism, every day we wake up and we say, your faith, God, is abundant? Because Hashem, our Father and our King, he knew that we would wake up some days feeling anxious, feeling overwhelmed, feeling like it's too much, that I can't. And God says, you know what? I'm giving you another 24 hours to get this life of yours right. And even though you may believe you can't, I know you can. I believe in you. I'm with you. Just give it one more day, the best that you possibly can. And that's it. We cannot, no rabbi or no Rebbetzin can answer why we're going through what we're going through. The word why is lama. Why? But when we break it down in Hebrew to lema, for what? That takes us to a different place. We can't ask so much why. We have to ask for what. And for each and every one of us, it's to help us become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly be in our marriages, in our parenting, in our own individual existence. So thank you, Project Inspire, for having me. I'm doing it right alongside you every day, Modeh-ani lefanecha, one day at a time. I've been doing it for many, many years, and you can do it. And the more you do it, and the more you come to see, wait, God is with me, the more blessings come down in abundance.
Absolutely fantastic. And I appreciate, I know that we disturbed you in the middle of your mini vacation over there, so go back to it. Thank you very much again thanks for joining us the first time. Thanks for this special edition.
My pleasure. Thank you, Project Inspire. You're doing amazing things. Keep inspiring all of us. You're really fantastic. Thank you, Rabbi Friedman.
Take care.